Okay. If you haven't been watching this series, I don't know how to get you into it. So I'm just going to keep going with what I'm doing. I'm sort of ranking how people did runs over different numbers of years and comparing them and kind of categorizing them as solid runs, which are like, yeah, this is a very nice run. It adds to the resume. I'm getting rid of anything below that. I don't care if you happen to play a while you didn't care or before you got good. I don't want to penalize you for that. I'm just getting rid of it. And instead, we're taking solid run stuff that's like, yeah, that adds to what you've done. Not not necessarily a substantial amount, but clearly adds to the resume. Good runs are stuff, yeah, we're getting into stuff that really makes the resume. Great runs are, yeah, this is the reason why you're, a top. We've looked at the top 16th through 40th. Why you're a player in the top 40 or significantly higher. Shout out to Turds and Tezuka, who each have multiple runs that qualify in that section, and the really special runs, where you see Kazik, a really long duration of time, over 70%. Meta, the only person with a run of 3 tournaments here that's over 80%. Bren, the only person over 75% with a run of 6 tournaments there. Obviously, Met's run slightly higher win percentage, but half the number of tournaments. Clearly higher win percentage, but half the number of tournaments. And Kaus is the only person to maintain over 2/3 win rate for, just a huge number of tournaments. We could argue about placing. In fact, you may have in the past. You may have argued about it when I put out the previous videos, and I won't hear you because I'm recording these way in advance of when I'm putting them out. Okay, let's look at 15th place. So this is a really outstanding run because I just mentioned that Kazik was the only player over 70% for an 8-game tournament run. And Soujiro did it here because he won one of these over a 13-tournament run. If we compare Soujiro to Kaus, who I currently have at the top of the list, Soujiro would need to go 7-7 to equal Kaus's run. Clearly capable of this. In general, we've seen it's really hard to score 60%, even around like a 65% run, 70% run. If you say, well, did they score 60% around it? The answer is almost always not quite, probably high 50s, mid 50s. So this is to say, certainly we can expect 7-7 surrounding it. And even if he went out 3 times in a row in the first round, he would get there. How does it compare to Bren? Bren would need to go 15-7, expecting someone to go 2/3. This is clearly the best run we've seen yet, possibly by a decent margin. So we need a new tier. Call it Soujiro run in honor of our new superstar. I've always been very high on Soujiro in these videos. I think that's very apparent. I wonder, can I put little things over on the left side of the red line? No, I can't. That's a shame. All right, because I'd like to put the tier things there to save some space. Should we combine in the 7 and 4? We would get it up to 39-16. Because it's already ahead of the competition, I have no idea if that would help it. I think we're just going to forget about the 7 and 4, even though in almost any other case I'd add it in. But actually, 39-16, that's 39 out of 55. It's still over 70%. Let's just include it all. Because, like, he's over 70% in it. I mean, still. And adding anything over 60% is still very strong. Yeah. Okay, there's noise outside, but I don't think you can hear. So, okay. Soujiro is now our top dog for best peak. Congratulations to Soujiro. But now we have another really interesting one. Cookie. What do we do with Cookie? Here's Cookie. So first of all, we're going to get rid of that O2. Now, 33-11 is better than Soujiro's 32-12. And if we compare it to 39-16, 33-11, he needs to go 6-5. We can grant that. Cookie 04-6 now tops the list. and would top the list whichever way we had cut up Soujiro. Right? This is an absolutely incredible run. I think we could combine these. Because the thing is, I think they're both just landing in the solid run era on their own. Right? 26 and 29, I've talked about how hard it is to maintain 50%. Doing it over an 8-year span is actually really good, being close to 50%. 9 and 3 is just it's too small a sample. I don't know what to make of it. I would not be able to have it, I'd have it ahead of Kaus's run, but it would be really hard for me to get it into the good run category. Right? It needs to only go 7 and 8 to pass Reye, but I've been burned here. I've seen 3 tournament runs where people put up runs like that, and they do not reliably maintain 50% after. So maybe it belongs around here, but it's hard for me to put my faith in. However, you combine these, and we get 35 and 32, which is just such a long time to maintain. Nah, I think we keep them separate. I think I'm going to put this one here, a little ahead of Kaus's. He did win after all. And I think I'm going to put this one... Sorry if you're getting noise from outside. This one... Oh, I'm going to move slightly. Now you're going to get horrible noises. As I put down the computer. I'm going to put the second cookie run here. I think it probably deserves better, but I'm not quite sure how to deal with it. So I'm going to say this clearly helps his case. Cookie has 2 recent things that clearly are very nice for his case. This one's not so recent, but Cookie playing a long time solidly is good for his case. It lowers his win percentage and lots of stats I use, but I think this is good for him. Cookie's 9 and 3 has to be good for him. And Cookie's 33 and 11 run is insane. Cookie's really good. It's weird to say that in some ways because I don't have a ton of faith in 04 to 06. So I think it is telling that from 07 to 15, Cookie is a slightly above average player. And that in 23, he wins a closed tournament, but closed obviously is high variance. Don't know how much stock to put in that. Obviously, it was a great run. He went out early and had to play so many extra rounds. But Cookie is very capable, and I don't know that that changes the kind of outlook that 07 to 15 gave me on Cookie. But it is to say, I think Turds has, for example, has been a better player for a long time. This is why I would personally have Turds higher on the list. But you start looking at it like this. Turds can't touch Cookie's peak. And if we value all time as equal and all wins as equal, you have to have Cookie really high. This is such a good result from Cookie. Such an incredible run from Cookie. That's 13 tournaments, I think. He won 2 during that time. He did lose a title match, so that's 12 tournaments. To go 75% over 12 tournaments is absurd. And he's so far ahead of the field here. The closest we've seen is Bren over 6, but that's half the number of tournaments. But we also have him in tougher eras with tougher opposition being a good, solid player and clearly worse than a lot of the players we've seen here. So Cookie's a very interesting case. But there's also, of course, the thing of I bet he was playing a lot more invested during that peak run. Who am I to say he's a similar level player in the aftermath? I have no idea. So anyway, yeah, Cookie's incredible here, and you can see why when Kaus wrote an article in 08 of Who's the GOAT, he had Doc Evil first and Cookie second. And I think by the end of 08, that's wrong, but at the start of 08, that might be correct. And if we look at this list, it's obviously trivially correct, right? And I think he had himself Kaus third, and I think him in third was correct in 08. You look at this list. Maybe Soujiro. Probably Soujiro, actually. I think you should have Doc Evil 1, Cookie 2, Soujiro 3, Kaus 4. That we haven't gotten to a couple players who are all really only two players who could also be in the conversation. So I guess I'll spoil and just say I think Kamikaze is also somewhere in that top five. Now he wasn't doing it quite as tournament based as I am, so we had players like Lionheart in there, I think, if I recall correctly. So you could have it different ways, but this is a we haven't done Doc Evil, and we won't do Doc Evil because he didn't play enough tournaments. But if you exclude Doc Evil, Cookie should be first. Though I don't think by the end of 08 that's still true. But at the start, and again, I didn't check when that article came out. This brings us to 13th. We have Vid. Now, if you missed Vid's really good run, might surprise you, but Vid places very well here. Make sure everything's working. Yep, cool. Immediately solid, comes back in 2010, not so good, we'll just get rid of it. Has a fantastic 11 to 14 run. Do we want to combine in 2023? Yeah, I mean, it's over 60%. I think if we combine it, we'll still be over 70% overall. That's 47 and 19, so that's 47 out of 66. Yeah, that's 71.2% from 11 to 23, and that's going 47 and 19. Yeah. This 0306 section, 12.9, is really nice. Like, obviously adds to the case. A little worse than 13.10. Let's put it here. So Vid, nice solid results early. And then more recently became absolutely tremendous. This is longer than Soujiro's run and a higher win percentage. I think it cannot compare to Cookie's. Possible Cookie should be in his own tier. We'll figure that out later. But I think this is, yeah, very clearly we are hitting a point. And we hit Turds, who has a whole bunch of stuff that's like, if you could combine these two runs, if they were chronologically consecutive, and if he hadn't had a good but down period between, this would be 38 and 16, which would be, right next to Soujiro, right? You can see why Turds is, in my opinion, firmly in this group with these other players, even if he doesn't appear so here. But these three runs are very clearly the best chronologically consecutive runs we've seen. All right. We are also now hitting the point, I probably have talked about this, but I used to think there was a pretty clear top 10. And then I realized, and some things changed a little with it, that it's a 10-ish. There are 11 players who have a really good case for the top 10. And I think with Turds winning a third tournament, with Cookie winning a third tournament, with Vid and Soujiro's really high peaks, and Vid having won 2 tournaments, with Akiyama's short-term play, but keeping playing and maintaining really, really high win rates. There used to be 11 players for the top 10, and now there are arguably 15 or 16. Now, obviously, a top 10 of that many doesn't make sense, but my point is, if you kind of look at it by best peaks, you'll get a different top 10 than by most achievement, or kind of who has the most icons, and kind of different longevity factors, or who has maintained at least a really good level for the longest. And there's enough different ways to sort it that make sense. And let's say there were 3 good ways to sort it, and someone was 25th in 2 and 10th in the other, and just barely sneaking in and way behind the top 9. I'd go, okay, that player's not a top 10 player. But you can sort the list different ways, and a lot of these players could be 8th or higher depending on how you sort it, even the ones that, I don't have in my top 10. And that makes for what I think is top 10-ish, right? I used to think there were about 11 players, maybe 12 or 13, that had a case to be top 10. But I was pretty confident to be 11. And I still think those 11 are the top 11. But I also think there are 4 or 5 more players that could very reasonably consider themselves top 10 all time. And we've just talked about 4 of them. 3 of them in this video because we did turrets in the last one. So let's talk about another. We have 12th, Akiyama. So we're going to remove 2013. These win percentages are very similar. Again, I always split up the return from the non-return, but if combining them helps someone's case, we will combine them. Here, it certainly does. This is a 35-13 run, 35 out of 48, 72.9%. We're starting to see players that consecutively, over really large numbers of tournaments, were able to put up 70% plus win rates. And I think, especially given that I do believe the opposition is a higher level, you know, that the longest we'd seen for a long time of anyone's we'd looked at was Kazakh. We're now seeing players who have done it significantly longer than all the players we saw kind of here. And in a row. So 35 and 13. Does that beat Soujiro? Would need to go 4 and 3. Akiyama's most likely going to go 4 and 3. To beat Vid, would need to go 12 and 6. That's 2/3 win rate. I think even now we can't quite assume that. There's a very good chance it happens, but also easy for it not to. So easy to get just a tough pairing in round 1, happen to lose, and suddenly that's really hard to achieve. We're starting to get to the range that, like, I was saying you can't assume 60%. Now we're starting to see more, you can't assume 2/3, right? Because these are players where we can assume 60%, right? But that looks right. Like, Cookie needs to go 2 and 2 to equal that, which incidentally is about what Cookie did, because Cookie dropped off there, but I think you have to have Cookie ahead. Yeah, this looks about right to me. And for our last person of the day, we have Slash of Time, who is very much a top 10 player who happens not to be in my top 10, because there's 11 names there, and there's 5 or so names of those 11, maybe 4 names of those 11, 4 or 5 names of the 11, where you could pick any one of them to be 11th, and it would be completely reasonable. And once you see Slash's numbers, you may think, how could he possibly not be there? Because Slash is fantastic. Because one thing that separates Slash from the next group is Slash has 2 distinct runs that are some of the best runs here, right? He has 2 distinct runs that I think are better than, it's close, but like at worst would land at the top of the great run category. So let's look at them. First of all, we're kicking off his reborn time, 5-5. You know, he's been fine, but, and, you know, a few more tournaments, if that gets up to like 8-8, 9-9, that probably gets into the solid run category. But for now, we're going to delete it. And we're left with 39-21. Now, if we compare that to D, it's a slightly lower win percentage, but D would need to go 9 and 6, and we can't assume 60%. So Slash's 10-16 run would at least be top of the great runs category. Does it get ahead of Kazakh? Kazakh would need to go 18 and 13. That's just under 60%. I think it's right around there. So that run would land there. And then we have a 24 and 7 run. Now, 24 and 7 obviously beats 17 and 5. We need to go 7 and 2. Now it's pretty hard to compare because all these runs are so long. But like notably, Kaus is here, and Slash is the same run in his weaker run, 39-21. But I think like the 24-7 is better. So if we combine them, it has to be better than Kaus. And I think he, by like a clear amount, right? Because you take a run quite similar to Kaus and you add a significantly higher win percentage run. So where would 24 and 7 land? Well, to equal Kaus, it would have to go 15 and 12. Can definitely do that at this point. To equal Soujiro would have to go 15 and 9. 15 and 9, as we so often get, is 62.5%. I think at this point we can assume that, especially because we see he did go 65% for 7 years and over 20 tournaments after this. So at this point, we can start assuming you can beat 62.5%. Does it beat Akiyama? He would need to go 11 and 6. That's a little under 67%. That's basically 65%. He did that for 7 years. This beats Akiyama. Does it beat Vid? 24 and 7. Needs to go 23 and 12. Okay, that's slightly above the 65%, but it's so close. He can do that. Does it beat Cookie? Needs to go 9 and 4. So I think one of Slash's runs is either the worst of the specials or the best of the greats, and the other is either our best top run or our second best top run. Needs to go 9 and 4. 9 out of 13 is like 69%. I don't know if we can assume that. So the question is, if we combine them, does this get Slash into clear first? Because if it doesn't, we should leave them separated, and he gets 2 really high placing runs. But if it does get him into first, I care more about your top finish here, and I want to combine them because they are chronologically next to each other. So this is an insanely long combined run. 63 and 28 is 91 games. Aside Vid's run, this is almost double like every other top run. Yeah, so 63 out of 91. So 69% over 91 games. To equal that, Cookie would have to go 30 and 17. Which we know Cookie did not come remotely close to doing. Cookie has won over 30 games since, but has lost over 30 as well, or around just over 30, not 17. I think Slash will look better if we keep this separate. Just barely. I'm going to put this here. And I'm going to put this here. And this is where, like, I think there are, now a lot, 16-ish players that have a claim for top 10. But that Slash lands here and here is why I think as good and as possible it is that Vid or Akiyama or Turds will pass Slash in my Hall of Fame list. I think Slash is better. We've seen 66 games from Vid. We've seen 48 from Akiyama. We've seen 55 from Soujiro. We've seen 44 from Cookie at about a Slash of Time level. And we saw almost 100 games from Slash at that level. So they're not there yet. We combine Turds' best runs, and you get up to 50-some games as well, right? The Vid, Akiyama, Soujiro, Cookie, Turds tier are people who, over 50 games, scored around 70%, which is incredible. But Slash did it for 90. And that's a big gap. That's a big gap. Vid is getting there, though. Yeah, so that's going to end today's look. And just to say, Slash of Time is incredible. And as we get into the top 10, you might decide Slash should clearly be a top 10 player. And I think he should be. I just also think 10 other people should be as well. And I made these numbers a while ago, then I didn't look at them because I wanted to come to this video fresh. So I don't really know how Slash holds up to the top 10. But he is firmly in their company. You may end up concluding he should be 7th. You may end up concluding he should be 10th or 11th or 6th, But he's somewhere in this range. And yeah, really strong set of players today. Really strong set. Yeah, all right, we'll end there. But shout out to Slash of Time. As Ruffles the Kitten once said, put some respect on Slash's name.